The first truly great migration of the 21st century may not move inland. It may move down, not because humanity suddenly fell in love with scuba gear, but because the map itself started changing. Coastlines crept backward. Storm surges pushed farther inland. Land in safe, temperate regions became brutally expensive. And somewhere between rising seas, overcrowded megacities, and a species that has never met a frontier it didn't want to monetize, one question stopped sounding absurd. What if the next great city wasn't built on the ocean, but under it? At first, the idea sounds like science fiction wearing a hard hat. Glass domes on the seafloor, trains moving through illuminated tunnels, schools where the morning view includes drifting, rays instead of traffic, apartment towers wrapped in steel, ceramic and panic-resistant engineering. But the strange part is this: the hardest challenge wouldn't be getting people underwater. It would be convincing them to stay, because an underwater city wouldn't just be architecture. It would be a new relationship with pressure, isolation, infrastructure and risk. It would test economics, psychology, geopolitics, and the oldest human instinct of all, the need to look up and see open sky. And yet, if history has a pattern, it's this: the impossible usually stays impossible right up until someone finds a profitable reason to build it. This future wouldn't begin with a giant dome descending into the Atlantic like some billionaire's aquarium fantasy. It would begin with something much less cinematic: the realization that humanity is already an underwater civilization in disguise. Nearly all of global internet traffic moves through submarine cables on the seafloor. The cloud, despite its very spiritual-sounding name, depends on hardware sitting in very wet, very physical places. Tunnels already run beneath rivers and bays. Offshore platforms already support energy production in brutal marine conditions. The modern world likes to think of the ocean as a border. In practice, it is already part highway, part power grid, part data center, part construction site, and humans have already proved they can live beneath the surface for meaningful stretches of time. Florida International University's Aquarius Reef Base, sitting about 60 feet beneath the Florida Keys, has supported more than 153 saturation missions and helped produce over 800 research papers. More than 462 aquanauts have lived and worked there. For more than 3 decades, Aquarius has functioned as the world's only underwater research laboratory, which is both inspiring and a little unnerving. Humanity has spent decades proving it can survive underwater, and somehow the real estate brochures still haven't started. NASA noticed the same thing. Through its NEMO missions, astronauts, engineers and scientists have lived in Aquarius for up to 3 weeks at a time, because underwater life mimics some of the most important features of space: isolation, danger, confinement, dependence on equipment, and the need for obsessive planning. In other words, living underwater is excellent preparation for living somewhere even less forgiving. That overlap matters. It suggests underwater urban life isn't just a fantasy. It belongs to the same family tree as space habitats, polar stations, and nuclear submarines. The science is real. The technology is real. What's missing is scale, and scale may arrive faster than people expect. According to the IPCC, many coastal cities and settlements face severe disruption by 2050, with risks extending to all coastal settlements by 2100 and beyond. By the end of the century, hundreds of millions of people and roughly $8 to $14 trillion in assets could sit inside the 1 in 100 year coastal floodplain, depending on warming levels and adaptation. That's not just an environmental problem, that's an urban planning emergency with a deadline, so cities are already testing softer versions of the future. Rotterdam has embraced the idea of living with water. Amphibious and floating housing is moving from curiosity to adaptation strategy. UN Habitat and partners have even showcased floating city concepts like Oceanics Busan. Notice the pattern. First, the city resists water, then it floats on water, and eventually someone asks the question nobody could quite avoid anymore. If the sea keeps coming, why keep pretending civilization has to stay dry? The first true underwater city probably wouldn't look like Atlantis. It would look more like an industrial district, a research campus, a luxury experiment, and a survival strategy all stitched together. It would likely be built in relatively shallow coastal waters, not in the abyss. That detail changes everything. Deep ocean pressure is merciless, and the deeper a habitat goes, the more brutally expensive every wall, seal, cable, valve, and escape route becomes. So early underwater districts would almost certainly hug continental shelves, sheltered bays, or engineered lagoons where pressure is manageable and access to the surface is fast. At first, the residents wouldn't be ordinary families. They'd be marine researchers, robotics crews, defense contractors, aquaculture operators, desalination engineers, medtech staff, and the kind of wealthy early adopters who think exclusive ocean residence sounds romantic rather than medically concerning. The first generation of underwater neighborhoods would sell themselves as innovation zones. The sales pitch would be climate resilience, scientific prestige, and breathtaking views. Also, quite a lot of reinforced steel, and there would be real advantages. Seawater is already right there, which makes desalination an obvious lifeline. Modern seawater reverse osmosis systems commonly operate in roughly the 2.5 to 3.5 kilowatt-hour per cubic meter range, which is still energy intensive, but no longer absurdly so. Pair that with offshore energy, careful recycling, and tight water management, and an underwater district begins to look less like fantasy and more like a sealed utility machine. Food systems would evolve too. Instead of trucking supplies across sprawling land networks, underwater settlements could sit beside aquaculture facilities, algae production, shellfish farms, and vertical agriculture modules linked directly to the habitat. Some of the freshest seafood on Earth might come with the weirdest commute on Earth, but early optimism would hide a much stranger shift. Residents wouldn't just be moving into a new neighborhood, they'd be moving into an engineered life support system. Doors would feel like airlocks, hallways would feel like spacecraft corridors, sunlight would arrive filtered blue and rationed by architecture. Weather would become something seen on screens or felt as distant turbulence above. And that's when people would discover the first big twist. The most expensive part of an underwater city wouldn't be building it, it would be maintaining it. Salt water is a patient vandal. It corrodes, creeps, fouls, cracks, clogs, and quietly turns neglected hardware into an apology. Engineers already know this from offshore infrastructure, subsea robotics, and deep ocean exploration. ASME describes the deep ocean as cold, dark, corrosive, and full of crushing pressure, where a single failure in a complex system can be catastrophic or at least mission-ending. That sentence becomes much more dramatic when the mission is not a research dive, but Tuesday. An underwater city would need constant inspection. Hull integrity, seals, pressure management, oxygen systems, carbon dioxide scrubbing, water purification, microbial control, power redundancy, ballast systems, docking bays, robotic maintenance corridors, emergency shelters. Every one of them would need to work all the time, with very little tolerance for error, and underwater communication would make everything harder. GPS, Wi-Fi, and ordinary radio signals don't work the way modern city dwellers are used to. Acoustic communication can help, but it's inconsistent and environment dependent. So the underwater city of the future would also have to be an AI city, packed with autonomous robots, internal sensors, visual navigation systems, and predictive maintenance software hunting for tiny failures before they become headlines. In effect, people wouldn't be moving into a city. They'd be moving into a machine pretending to be a city. That would ripple through the economy almost immediately. Insurance companies would have to invent entire new categories of risk. Construction. Firms would merge with marine engineering specialists. Real estate law would collide with maritime law. Governments would fight over seabed zoning, emergency jurisdiction, mineral access, and who exactly is responsible when a privately operated residential module leaks at 3 a.m. Then the social consequences would arrive. At first, underwater living might become a prestige symbol. The ultra-rich could market it as the ultimate secure lifestyle, climate-buffered, high-tech, private and physically separated from overcrowded land cities. But that wouldn't last. Once coastlines became more unstable and protected land became scarcer, the logic could flip. Surface property with reliable elevation might become the true luxury, while underwater districts absorb industry, logistics, food production, data storage, and eventually lower-cost housing for people priced out of safer land. That's when underwater urbanism stops being a curiosity and starts becoming class structure. And the psychology would get weird fast. Humans did not evolve to spend years in pressurized habitats, under artificial light, cut off from horizons. NASA used underwater habitats to simulate space for a reason. Confined environments change mood, routine, teamwork, stress response, and sense of time. In an underwater city, children might grow up hearing pumps in the walls the way other children hear birds. Teenagers would complain there's nothing to do on the surface. Someone eventually would pay extra for a penthouse with a better shark view, but none of that would be the biggest problem, because once a city depends on life support, every ordinary urban failure becomes existential. On land, a blackout is dangerous. Underwater, a blackout is a countdown. That is the central terror of a submerged city, not the fish, not the darkness. Dependency. In a normal city, people survive because the environment is mostly passive. Air is available. Doors open to somewhere. Survivable. Evacuation usually means leaving the building. In an underwater city, the environment outside is immediately hostile. If a corridor floods, it doesn't become inconvenient. It becomes inaccessible. If fire breaks out, smoke has nowhere easy to go. If power systems fail, oxygen handling, water purification, communications, lighting, pressure control, and medical support all begin leaning toward disaster at the same time, and disasters would not stay local for long. One major habitat failure, captured live, replayed globally, politicized instantly, could crash investor confidence in the entire underwater sector. Financing would freeze, regulators would overcorrect. Families would leave. Rival nations would call the whole project reckless. The first collapse wouldn't just kill people, it could kill the dream. Unfortunately, the crisis would get bigger than engineering. Underwater cities would sit at the intersection of energy, communications, food systems, and national security. They would be near ports, data routes, desalination, plants, marine resources, and critical cable corridors. That makes them economically valuable. It also makes them strategic targets. The same seabed that carries nearly all global internet traffic would now host human populations, industrial nodes, and maybe military-adjacent infrastructure. Sabotage would become far more frightening. Cyber attack on a land city is disruptive. A cyber attack on an underwater city could become physically lethal. Suddenly, urban planning starts reading like naval doctrine. And then comes the emotional peak of the whole idea. Even if the engineering works, even if the economics work, even if governments secure it all, there remains one question no spreadsheet can fully answer. Would people truly want to raise generations there? Would they want birthdays without open parks, storms heard as muffled pressure above, and daily life mediated by emergency protocols? Would they accept that going outside requires a vehicle, a suit, or a very carefully designed boundary? Humanity has survived caves, ships, stations, trenches, and deserts. But surviving a place is not the same as wanting it to become home. That cultural resistance, not steel, not oxygen, might be the wall the ocean builds for itself. But humanity is stubborn, especially when danger and opportunity share an address. So the response wouldn't be to abandon underwater cities. It would be to redesign them until they feel less like habitats and more like ecosystems. The first adaptation would be depth. Most permanent settlements would stay relatively shallow, where structural demands are lower and evacuation to the surface is possible. The second would be modularity. Instead of one giant dome, which is visually impressive and strategically ridiculous, cities would be built as clusters of compartments. If one module fails, others seal instantly. Ships do this. Spacecraft do this. Underwater cities would copy both. The third adaptation would be robotics. Much of the dangerous exterior work would be handed to machines inspired by the same deep ocean, and space systems already being tested today. Woods Hole and NASA have worked on autonomous systems like Orpheus, while robotics companies have built underwater vehicles designed to operate far from human hands. A real underwater city would deploy swarms of inspection drones, repair crawlers, external sensors, and AI systems trained to detect corrosion, stress, fouling, and leaks before human residents ever know there was a problem. Then comes the part people often forget. Architecture is psychology. If a city wants residents to stay sane, it cannot feel like a submarine forever. So designers would create artificial day-night cycles, wide communal plazas, high ceilings, biophilic interiors, hydroponic gardens, simulated skylights, and scheduled access to surface spaces. Mental health would become infrastructure, surface. Leave might be treated less like a vacation perk and more like preventive medicine. Basic utilities would also improve. Desalination would provide fresh water. Closed-loop recycling would reduce waste. Food production would blend aquaculture with indoor farming. Energy would come from a mix of seabed cables, offshore generation, and ruthlessly managed redundancy. The city would not survive by being romantic. It would survive by being efficient. And eventually, lawmakers would catch up. New building codes, new insurance pools, new labor standards, new maritime treaties, new definitions of property, citizenship, emergency response, and environmental accountability. An underwater city would force civilization to admit something it has avoided for centuries. The ocean is not just scenery, it is governance. By the time underwater urbanism matures, the most interesting outcome may be that humanity does not move underwater all at once. It moves there selectively. Most people would still live on land. Many others would live in floating districts, elevated coastal zones, or amphibious neighborhoods. But underwater cities would emerge as specialized layers of larger metro systems, part industrial park, part research cluster, part secure infrastructure hub, part residential zone for people who genuinely adapt to the lifestyle. A future Tokyo, Lagos, Jakarta, or Miami might not build an entire submerged metropolis. It might build underwater data vaults, desalination boroughs, aquaculture suburbs, medical research habitats, logistics depots, and tourism capsules linked to the surface by ferries, lifts, and maintenance corridors. The true underwater city may arrive not as one mega project, but as hundreds of practical modules that slowly become normal. And once that happens, culture changes. New jobs appear. Hull ecologists, acoustic traffic controllers, corrosion auditors, subsea architects, pressure systems medics, robotic dock crews. New status symbols appear too. Not just waterfront property, but water column access. Not just a sea view, but a reef district. Urban nightlife becomes literal nightlife, glowing against black water while bioluminescent organisms drift past observation corridors like living constellations. There would be benefits beyond survival. underwater cities could become unmatched. Platforms for ocean science, reef restoration, marine conservation, and climate monitoring. A civilization that actually lives beside the systems keeping it alive might take those systems more seriously. It is easier to ignore the ocean when it is over the horizon, much harder when it is outside the bedroom wall. And there's one more twist. Living underwater may turn out to be the best rehearsal for living beyond Earth. NASA used Aquarius because the ocean is an alien environment that forces careful planning, technological dependence, and team discipline. Scale that up, and underwater cities become training grounds for moon bases, Martian settlements, and closed-loop life support at planetary scale. The path to other worlds may run through our own seafloor first, but every solution creates a new dependency. A civilization layered into the ocean becomes more resilient in one way and more fragile in another. It gains space, food, research access, and coastal flexibility. It also ties human survival even more tightly to infrastructure, software, maintenance, and political stability. If the 20th century was defined by roads and the 21st by networks, an underwater century might be defined by life support civilization. So what if cities were built underwater? The answer is not that humanity would become Atlantis. The answer is that civilization would stop pretending the boundary between human life and the ocean is permanent. An underwater city would not prove humans conquered nature. It would prove they were finally forced to negotiate with it. Not from the shoreline, not from a postcard, but from inside a habitat where every breath depends on understanding the world outside. And maybe that is the strangest possibility of all. The first generation raised partly underwater might grow up with a completely different idea of what a city is. Not a patch of land with buildings on top, but a controlled ecosystem threaded through hostile space. To them, walls that keep the ocean out may feel as ordinary as walls that keep rain out feel today. To them, surface living may seem exposed, noisy, and inefficient. To them, the sky might be beautiful, but optional. If that happens, the biggest consequence won't be architectural. It will be psychological, because the moment humanity becomes comfortable building neighborhoods beneath the sea, it also becomes the kind of species that no longer defines home by soil at all. And once home stops requiring dry land, the next question becomes difficult to forget. If people can learn to live under an ocean on Earth, how long before they decide they can live under the ice of another world?